Before we go too crazy, let's talk a little bit about remineralization, because I think a lot of people don't understand what that really means.
Sure. And
If you
it's
could-
a, I'm glad you said it right. I like to refer to it as remineralization. In this industry, a lot of our papers you'll see is they call it mineralization, but it's really remineralization. And if you took any livestock waste, whether it's fish waste or cow, chicken, pig, that product is in a solid form and it's not available to our plants. It's bound up as solids. And it has to go through a process of breaking down into smaller and smaller constituents till eventually you have those dissolved nutrients that plants can bring across their cell walls. I relate it to my students here. If they have a peach orchard in their yard and they put cow patties or cow manure on top of the soil, that tree gets no benefit whatsoever. We have to rely on the microbes, and I know your audience knows all this, the soil food web typically, where it's breaking down those large solids and nutrients into finer and finer nutrients till they're available to the plants. We do the same thing in the aquatic environment as well. But we can take that sludge, that manure out as a liquid slurry. And what I do is I put it into an aerated septic tank, basically. It's a vessel. I like cone bottom tanks because nothing can settle. If things settle, you'll get that anaerobic zone forming, and anaerobic conditions will bleed off all of your nitrogen. So we don't want any settling in a remineralization tank. So cone bottoms are really good. Or if you have a round tank, you want to make sure you have a bottom circulation. There's no settling. So through the process of adding energy through aeration, and this is sometimes the bottleneck. If you live in a region where energy is expensive, aerobic remineralization may not be the way for you. But if you can, we add energy through aeration. We feed aquatic aerobic microbes, and they consume that food source. They grow biomass and they excrete nutrients until eventually what's left is 99% dissolved water with nutrients. So I can take that supernatant out. I push it back over to my aquaponic systems. What's left will continue to digest through the next cycle. And eventually there's nothing left but a little bit of sand and grit that may have come in with the fish feed. So that's remineralizing. And again, we can do this with any, and we should be doing this with every nutrient that we're wasting. And this is the future. I talk with NASA a lot. They're looking at humanure. How are we going to take that humanure, remineralize it to a nutrient solution? So any livestock operation should be thinking about creating nutrient solutions off of what some people consider a waste. And that's really how I got into this field as well. In the early 90s, every aquaculture facility was dumping their waste. They didn't see it as a resource. I saw it as a resource. I studied it. I studied how to utilize it efficiently. And as I mentioned before, I've created systems here now that are zero discharge. So I've run hydroponic systems at scale. I've got a couple that are about 3,000 gallons, and they've been recycling the same water for 6 years. There's a 99.5% recycle rate. All my students did a water budget this semester. We top off 0.5% per day. And any of these waste, it's a sludge that comes out, I remineralize it and I push it all right back into the same system. So now I'm not just restricted to growing lettuce and basil, but I grow tomatoes and cucumbers and chili peppers and cantaloupes because I've got that extra nutrient. If you all think about it, when we waste, you and I, when a fish wastes and a pig wastes, the majority of the phosphorus is bound up as solids. It's just the same in nature. Phosphorus is hard to dissolve and make available to our plants. So often in a fish system, we're throwing it away. When you get rid of your solid waste and maybe you put it on your compost or your orchard, but if you're not using it in your aquaponic system, you may not have the phosphorus levels that your plants want to fruit and flower. You know all about decoupled cannabis operations where they say you have to put in the P and K in a decoupled system. And I think, you work with a company in Canada they don't do any decoupling. They don't do any tailoring. They're using fish microbes and fish nutrients, and they're winning the awards across Canada for quality as well. So remineralization allows for a farm to become zero discharge. to become low impact and not wasteful to the environment. And you could also monetize it. A lot of the work that's being done in Lethbridge College with Nick Savidoff, I left a large grant there. It is literally taking livestock waste through the process of remineralization, aerobic remineralization, to create a nutrient solution so these farmers have an extra income. They don't have to use it on site. You don't have to turn a fish farmer into a hydroponic grower, but they could monetize all their waste and package it and bottle it. And we're starting to see products in the hydroponic world, the fish shits and the fish poops and all this stuff. And they all have a little different components, but it's not fish guts. It's not fish emulsion like we all used to use back in the day and open those bottles and they stink because they're fermenting in there. This is that fish water, or it's the remineralized fish poop that's ready for your plants and it's not biologically active and transforming in the bottle and creating gases. It's stabilized, ready to go, and it's a great income stream for, again, any livestock grower.
Oh, that's fantastic. I love that you've gotten to the point where you have zero discharge and you're only water brightening by 5%. That's an amazing
0.5%, Leighton.
0.5.
Sometimes I say these numbers and I don't think people can relate. When I say 99.5% recycle rate and I'm adding 5.5% per day, I think I've got to start turning it into, you know how many tons of food I produced with X number of gallons? That's what's really going to relate. And comparing that to traditional field production, or even, I don't like to compare my systems to traditional field production when it comes to resource and water use. I like to compare my systems to the best precision soil management systems. It's really ridiculous for me to compare my system to what we call acequia farming here, or furrow field, flooding your field. That doesn't happen much. I like to compare it to the best models in the world, and I can still show you that I can outcompete those farms as far as water and nutrient reuse.
Well said. And I think for the audience too, so that they better understand that, is that you're really creating organic nutrients in an ionic form. So if you take an NPK reading, you're not going to show much. It's basically going to be,
0.5, 1, yeah, 0.5, exactly.
Tiny fractions. And the reason why is we just don't have the instrumentation to actually measure the ionic forms of these, minerals. So that being said, is that the results you're getting are proof in the pudding that the minerals are present, just not readable. We just don't have the testing instruments to justify what we're seeing as a result in the fields.
Yeah, a lot of these testing equipments don't work so well in an organic solution. No, there's a reservoir of nutrients there and it's so robust. I wish I could take this computer and just show you my greenhouse on an off day. I don't even have students here, and we're just in between. But people come in here and they're amazed at the quality of our product. And we try to stay as pure as possible in our systems. I don't have a decoupled system currently on campus, but I probably have 15 coupled aquaponic systems. That purist in me, where the plants take care of the fish and the fish take care of the plants, and I can maintain a 99.5% recycle rate. That's the story of aquaponics. Splitting them up into decoupled systems and adding 50% hydroponic nutrients over here